Sometimes when clubs sign new players, there can be some pretty strange clauses inserted into contracts, whether it be demands from the club or the player. Let's take a look at 10 of the weirdest ones that have supposedly been signed. From private jets to armoured vehicles and space travel, no stone was left unturned in some of these deals. Let us know what you would demand as a superstar footballer, and the best comment will get read out on next week's Sunday Vibes. 10. Bergkamp's no-fly clause. Nicknamed the non-flying Dutchman, Dennis Bergkamp's fear of aeroplanes runs deep. First of all, he had to endure the tragedy of the 1989 Suriname Airways crash, which claimed the life of Ajax teammate Lloyd Doesburg. 5 years later, the plane carrying the Netherlands national team to the World Cup experienced a brief engine failure, and a flight later in the tournament was delayed due to a Dutch journalist joking about having a bomb in his bag. All of this contributed to Bergkamp's growing anxiety over flying, which became so prominent that he began to lose concentration in overseas games as a result, looking up at the sky to check if the weather would be bad for the journey home. So, when he signed for Arsenal in 1995, the Dutch international insisted he would no longer fly, something he later said cost him £100,000 in his contract. It also saw him miss numerous away fixtures in the Champions League, although he did undertake road trips to places as far away as Barcelona and Florence. Nevertheless, it didn't take away from a magnificent 10-year spell in North London, in which he made over 400 appearances and won 7 major trophies. 9. Neymar's Entourage. He was yet to prove himself in Europe, but Neymar was already a star in Brazil by the time he signed for Barcelona aged 21, having fired Santos to 3 league titles and the Copa Libertadores. And the Barca hierarchy treated him as such. Desperate to get the deal over the line, the club negotiated a section in his contract which saw them pay for his inner circle of friends, known as the Toys, to fly over from Barcelona every 2 months and also cover all of their expenses. Marca even reported that former Barca president Sandro Rosell had told Spain's High Court, which was investigating the deal that took the Brazilian to the Camp Nou, that they had paid over €300,000 for a private jet to fly Neymar, his family and friends over for his presentation at the club. And in 2020, reports emerged that 3 of Neymar's closest friends were now living with him in Paris, earning as much as £10,000 a month to help look after his brand. It seems like the superstar's entourage has only become more important over time. 8. The Catalan Clause. When Lionel Messi signed his long-term contract at Barcelona in 2017, it came just a month after the controversial Catalan independence referendum, which led to violent clashes between police and civilians, a number of politicians being jailed, and a constitutional crisis in Spain. And if Catalonia had successfully claimed independence from the rest of Spain, that may have seen Barca expelled from La Liga, with the league's president Javier Tebas insisting that this would happen. A couple of months after Messi's contract was signed, Spanish publication El Mundo reported that it contained a clause that accounted for this very scenario. If Barca were no longer able to play in the Spanish top flight and were not accepted into Serie A, the Bundesliga or the Premier League, then Messi would be allowed to leave the club for free. Catalunya never became independent, but another clause in Messi's contract also did see him leave for nothing in 2020, only for the club to block his move. Nevertheless, when his deal eventually expired this summer, Barca's financial turmoil and La Liga spending controls meant he wasn't able to re-sign, and he now finds himself at PSG after 21 years at the Camp Nou. 7. The 20-minute special. When Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain signed for Arsenal in 2011, the move was greeted with a lot of enthusiasm. The midfielder was one of the most exciting young prospects in England, having come through the Southampton Academy, which had produced Theo Walcott and Gareth Bale in previous years. However, he hardly played, making just 14 starts in his first 2 years, and his sub-appearances rarely amounting to more than 15 minutes apiece. But then it was revealed why this may have been the case. In 2013, details of Oxlade-Chamberlain's contract came out in the press, including a clause that obligated Arsenal to pay Southampton £10,000 every time he featured for 20 minutes or more in a game. This led many to believe that manager Arsene Wenger was under pressure to use him sparingly in matches, and weirdly enough, there were a sizable number of games in which he was brought on just after the 70th minute. Nevertheless, it was calculated that they'd paid the Saints over £200,000 as a result of that campaign. 6. The Balotelli Clause. Following a disappointing spell at Liverpool in 2014-15, Mario Balotelli returned to AC Milan on loan. By this point, he was European football's most notorious maverick, known more widely for his unpredictable behaviour away from the field and lack of discipline on it, as he was for his moments of magic and respectable goal-scoring record. So on returning to the San Siro, he was given a clause in his contract not dissimilar to the one seen in the Italian military. According to Gazzetta dello Sport, it banned him from donning extravagant haircuts and clothing, as well as smoking and going out to nightclubs. His alcohol intake was also strictly limited, and in order to protect the image of the club, his social media activity was also closely monitored. But it proved to be pretty useless. Balotelli spent months out injured during the campaign, making just 8 Serie A starts and scoring just once. He made a permanent switch to Nice the following summer and hit the form of his career in Ligue 1. 5. Armoured Honda. Having had a truly global football career, playing in Japan, the Netherlands, Italy, Russia, Mexico and Australia, you'd think Keisuke Honda would be pretty relaxed about the idea of living in a new city. But when he signed for Rio de Janeiro outfit Botafogo in 2020, the Brazilian city's reputation for crime was clearly a concern for him. Contract negotiations with the club took some time, and it was revealed by Brazilian outlet UOL that the Japanese star had requested an armoured vehicle as part of the deal. He may well have been right to be concerned for his security. After all, he was a high-profile signing and captained the side in most of the games he played. However, considering he'd asked Man United to sign him on Twitter just months before, it's possible the veteran may have also had delusions over his supposed superstar status, something which certainly existed 10 years earlier but had surely faded by this point. And his time in Rio was far from successful, unable to stop the club getting relegated to the second tier. 4. King Mbappé. Now for a player who is very much a superstar. It appears Kylian Mbappé was already confident of his status when he signed for PSG back in 2017. Then just 18, the French forward was coming off a breakout campaign with Monaco in which he'd hit 21 goals and 8 assists in just over 2,000 Ligue 1 and Champions League minutes. And considering Le Parisien were willing to invest such a big transfer fee in the youngster, Mbappé was ready to make his demands as part of the bargaining process. A year later, German publication Der Spiegel reported that Mbappé had been paid a signing-on fee worth £4.3 million and even requested to immediately be made the club's highest paid player over Neymar if he won the Ballon d'Or. However, the club refused to accept that particular demand, as they did with his desire for private use of a jet for 50 hours a year. Nevertheless, they did agree to pay £26,000 to cover the cost of the playmaker's caretaker, driver and bodyguard, and it's fair to say that Mbappé has repaid the club of his output, scoring 133 goals in 172 games for the French Giants at the time of writing. 3. Jet-setting Eto'o. Samuel Eto'o became the highest paid player in the world when he signed for Russian side Anzhi Makhachkala in 2011, a nice reward for a world-class striker who is coming off a 37-goal season for Inter Milan. But the contract also came with significant privilege. Suleiman Karimov, the billionaire who'd only taken the club over months earlier, was clearly eager to cater for his star players' every need. And according to reports at the time, Eto'o's deal included a clause that gave him personal access to the use of Karimov's private jet whenever he needed it. It was initially suggested that Eto'o would stay living in Milan, using the private jet to fly to games. But this would prove impractical, with the rest of the squad living and training in Moscow, which is nearly 2,000 kilometers from Makhachkala as it is, due to the unstable political situation in the state of Dagestan. Eto'o scored 36 goals across his 2 years in Russia, leaving in 2013 for Chelsea. 2. Ronaldinho's party. This same year Eto'o joined Anzhi, his former Barcelona teammate Ronaldinho returned to Brazil, signing for Flamengo and marking the end of his legendary 10-year spell in Europe. And during his time at Barcelona and Milan, the Maverick forward developed a reputation for enjoying the fiesta lifestyle, often going partying throughout the week and even turning up to training drunk or hungover on occasion. Ronaldo's hedonistic habits had caught up with him by the time he'd hit 30, with his physical shape and performances both declining. But it clearly didn't bother him much, as on arrival in Rio, he insisted on getting permission in writing to be able to continue the festivities. It may have well been a sensible move, after all he had previously been known for going out more often than that. Nevertheless, he only lasted a year at the Maracanã before leaving for Atletico Mineiro. 1. The Space Clause. By far the weirdest contract clause we discovered while researching this video, Stefan Schwarz's move from Valencia to Sunderland in 1999 was followed up with a space ban in his contract, which meant that if he travelled to space, his deal with the club would be void. But why on earth was this even considered? That year, Schwarz was named Swedish Footballer of the Year and cost the Black Cats around £4.5 million, a sizable sum at the time, and so he was considered a very important signing for the Wearside club. But he was also a known enthusiast of all things space travel, idolising Russian astronaut Yuri Gagarin and even harbouring ambitions of blasting off from Earth himself one day. Hearing this, Sunderland chief executive John Flicking didn't want to take any chances, telling the press he wanted insurance cover on the midfielder. And while it may have seemed odd, it certainly didn't hurt to include it in his terms. While commercial space travel is now only beginning to look possible, it was already being spoken about in the 90s, and the club clearly wanted to guarantee their star signing would be keeping his highly valuable feet firmly on Earth. So those were the 10 craziest contract demands we discovered in the world of football. But which one do you think is the most ridiculous? And if you were a superstar footballer, what would you demand if you were in negotiations? Let us know in the comments below and you may feature in a future Sunday Vibes. Make sure you're liked and subscribed to the channel and we'll see you next time.